Have you ever sat down to scrapbook? Maybe you really struggled to find that chunk of time where you could be creative, and you finally do it. You sit down, you look at all your beautiful supplies that haven't been touched yet, and your thousands of photos that you could choose from to scrapbook, and then you just feel completely overwhelmed instead of inspired. I know I've been there, and I'm guessing you have been too. So in today's video, I thought I would share a really fun idea for how you can kind of break out of that, find inspiration in a new way, and just get your creative process started. Social media sites like Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, they can all be really great places to find inspiration, but you can get stuck there in that loop of pinning and saving and getting all these ideas, but still feel really overwhelmed and never get to the actual making part of it. So what if we start with our past projects, with things that we've already made and tools that we already have in our stash, so we don't feel like we're missing anything? I'm going to go ahead and grab my iPad, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. I think finding inspiration in your past layouts is an awesome idea, but don't forget about your past cards that you've made that could serve as jumping off points for your layout. If you like this idea, I did do another video back in July where I took a Christmas card that I'd found on the Stampin' Up website, used the same paper to create a layout from it, and I walked you through that process step by step. I'm going to be doing the same thing again, except this time using a card from the 31 Days of Christmas Cards. This is an annual event that the creative design team puts on, and we make a new video for every day. So we're doing a full class of multiple cards every single day of October, focusing on techniques. And we are making Christmas cards, so we end up with a big stash of Christmas cards by the time we're done. Our 2024 event is now open, so you can go ahead and sign up. It's only available for registration through October 1st, and then it will be closed while we host the event. We also have past years on for a discount, so if you want to go back, you missed our first few years, you can go back and get those and catch up on all the classes that you missed. So this Christmas card here, I had originally made in several different combinations. I'm not going to show all of them, but you can see I did them in different papers and stamps, and that's something we like to do in the 31 days where we will show you one thing, but then we will show you the same thing again with different supplies or different color combinations. And it's a great way to learn a technique and then expand upon it. So what I'm looking for in my layout and what caught my eye was this fold right here. This isn't a super complicated card, but I thought this fold would look really fun with a photo collage underneath. So imagine this blown up as a 12 by 12. And then this part, I'm probably going to need to move it over so I can fit some photos and either do one large photo, or I could do a collage of photos, or just arrange separate printed photos into a collage. So I'm not sure exactly how I want to do that part, but I do know that I need a piece of paper where I love the front and the back. So that's going to be my first job. I recently picked up this beautiful collection from Stampin' Up called Winter Meadow. It was on sale in the paper sale in August, and I just loved the watercolor feel of it. I didn't really have specific plans for it, but I was looking through this. I was kind of looking through all my paper trying to find the perfect thing for this layout, and I found this piece here. Now what I like about this is it could definitely go wintry, but it could also be used for other times of the year. I don't think it has to be winter. And what really got me is this beautiful blue on the back side. It's basically like a blue watercolor, which I think goes really well because you have a busy pattern on here with several different colors in it. And then you have that beautiful bold blue that, you know, attracts attention, but also isn't going to compete with this busy pattern. So I think this is going to be the winner. Now that I have my paper, I need to decide on photos. And I could go wintry with it, but I have some pictures of my daughter and I picking Saskatoons that I think might go perfectly with this. So I'm going to print some of those out, and then we'll see what we can come up with. I debated using white cardstock for my base. Most of it's going to be hidden, but you can see the undertone of this paper is a little bit more maybe beige or gray, but I think it's going to work out okay. Hardly any of this is going to be seen, and I think my photos will pop better off of the white. I have a selection of those Saskatoon picking photos in an album on my computer, But I'm going to use some photo placeholders to figure out the configuration so I know what size to print them so I'm not wasting prints. Now I put a piece of Evergreen cardstock over here just so that you guys can see what I'm doing, because the white on white really doesn't show up. These are the photo placeholders from some of my older close to my heart workshops. These always come in the workshop, so in case you don't have photos to put down, you can still work around it and you know where your photos are supposed to go. They're also great for planning pages. So that's what I'm doing here, just trying to figure out, looking at what photos I have on my computer, what orientations they are, and then just moving things around to figure out how this will look best. I tend to have more portrait photos than I do landscape. I think that's just a side effect of using a phone. It's easy to take portrait photos, so I'm trying to make sure I have more of those than I do landscape. I'm just bringing in my pattern paper here to see how far in this is going to go, how many photos do I want to have, and when I peel it back, what am I going to be seeing? I think I might need another photo right there, maybe a 3x4, because that's where the split is going to be. So that part will be deeper than the other parts, and I also need to keep in mind what's on those photos because part of it's going to get cut off by the paper. I went ahead and printed my photos and trimmed them down to size. I used the Project Life app to do my photo collages to get 2 3x4s on a 4x6, and then I just cut them apart. Now I did trim my photos down about 1/8 of an inch, so they're like 2 7/8 by 3 7/8, just so that I have room for that little white border in between, because I did want it to look like a grid, and I think the photos pop more when you have that little bit of white showing. I'm also going to have a little bit of white around the 3 sides. Now I'm going into my pattern paper and I'm cutting a slit. This felt so wrong, and I wasn't quite sure how far to go. I ended up going about 4.5 inches. Kind of just have to eyeball it and try it out on your page, see how far it comes back, and if you need to cut deeper. I did put the slit right in the middle, so I measured to 6 inches and then I started cutting my slit because I wanted it to be centered and symmetrical. So I'm just measuring it. It's about 4.5. None of my measurements are like exact on here except for the photo sizes, just because I am just kind of winging it, measuring as I go, see what looks good, and then just going with that. You can also notice I have not cut off the remainder of my paper because I want to get this piece folded back and on my page, like just laying on top of my page before I decide how much I need to cut off. You could score this line if you wanted it to be very precise. You could go straight from that corner and score down so that you have a very crisp line. I was just kind of folding it gently in case I changed my mind. So I was just kind of working the paper slowly. I want the fold to be right at the corner so that it has like a nice crisp look to it. But I am moving slowly just to make sure that I'm really sure that I'm happy with what I have. Now, as I'm doing this process, I'm realizing instead of putting a 3x4 on the left-hand side, if I slide this photo over and put a 3x4 in behind it, that's probably going to work out better because I have the big part of the bush there on the left side of my 4x6, which doesn't really matter if it goes underneath the paper. I can still see plenty of the Saskatoon bushes. And I did kind of want to use this photo of the horse that we saw, this little pony that we saw while we were picking berries at the U-Pick, but the red just threw me off from the strawberries because we also got a few strawberries while we were here. But to have all the rest Saskatoons and then that one strawberry picture, I don't know, it just threw things off. So maybe I'll have to do like a little insert, Pocket Plus or something like that, just to include my like funny horse pictures that went along with this story. Now that I'm happy with where my pattern paper is, I just marked the edge with my nail there, and then I'm going to put it into my trimmer and cut it off. That's what I mean about the measurements aren't exactly precise on here. I did some eyeballing and just like making little marks to figure out where I needed to cut. And now I need to figure out what to do with those awkward little white triangle spots that are showing. I cut some little squares, or actually I had some scraps left over from the Country Woods paper pack, just some wood grain. I thought maybe that's neutral enough. I could just fill in with that. And I didn't really like it. It would work in a pinch, but I wasn't crazy about it because it's adding another texture and I didn't know really if I wanted to add wood grain anywhere else. So it could work, but I think I have a better solution. I had an extra photo that I was not using, so I just cut it down into like 2 little scraps. So it's just the Saskatoon bushes. There's nothing else in that photo, and I thought it will look like the photo collage is just continuing because it's the same greens, it's the same sort of textures. I really like how this looks. It kind of fools your eye into thinking that that collage just keeps on going. I went ahead off camera and attached my photos and attached the paper. Now I'm just going to stick those flaps down with a little bit of tape. I'm not taping the whole thing just in case I want to tuck something under, but it's enough to hold it right on the corner. Now, of course, once I got things stuck down, I decided, nope, need to change things. So I'm taking out my paper crafting tool here and just prying things up. Thankfully, I hadn't pushed things down too firmly, so I was able to do this. I could have used some undo, but I was able to peel it up this way. And I did start to rip my paper there right at the cut, but it's okay. That's going to be covered anyways. So I'm just pulling that out. I decided to put my journaling on my photo because as I was looking at the design of the page, I was like, okay, where am I going to put my journaling? I don't really have another spot for it. So I went in on Canva and did like a white fade background and then just typed on my journaling and reprinted my photo. We can move on now with the other elements, which were also inspired by the card design. I'm using this white circle, which is cut with the Spotlight on Nature dies. And then I used some of the textured floral dies to cut my greenery here. And I still don't have a lot of Stampin' Up! Cardstock yet, so I'm using Evergreen and Jade from Close to My Heart. And I'm kind of just going top and bottom, and then I'm going to bring in the textured floral stamps as well. You can see there's some standalone dies in there. These are some of my favorite. I've used them several times, and I think they'll be one of my go-tos. All the supplies I'm using are linked down in the description box for you guys. I'm also going to use this set here, the Gnomes for Summer, for my title. I'm not sure if it's still on the website, but if it is, I will link it below for you. It was one of the Close to My Heart sets that were brought over to Stampin' Up! For the kind of transition period. I'm just switching the door on my stamp tool just because I had it set for red rubber and I just have to flip it over for photopolymer stamps. I'm going to use the Summer Adventures. It's a great title for summer. And I think I'm going to use a brown. I was trying to decide what color would be best, but I think sticking neutral with early Espresso from Stampin' Up! Is the way to go. And I was able to do this in one stamping. I didn't even have to double stamp it. That's why I used the platform, because I thought for sure I was going to have to do it at least twice. So I pulled out some Close to My Heart inks. I was trying to get as close as I could to the pink of Isabella's shirt and shorts. And I think Wildberry is the closest that I have. I also pulled Raspberry, and I'm going to use both. The blue is Bluebird and then Jade for the green. I'm just doing a bunch of stamping here of the different textured floral images so that I can build just a big cluster of florals around my title. If you're enjoying this concept of using a card to inspire your scrapbook page design, make sure you check out the other Creative Design Team videos. I will have the playlist linked at the end of this video. The rest of the team has been making videos all week long of layouts based on past 31 Days of Christmas card designs. So I think it's going to be so much fun to sit and watch all of those. I'm almost finished my stamping here. I was going to mention that if you have Stampin' Up! Colors, I think Melon Mambo would be a really good match for like a bright pink, but I don't have that one yet. I wish I had because I think it would have been even better than the Wildberry. And now I'm going in with Blackberry Bliss. I have to say this is probably my new favorite ink color. It's a very dark purple and it's working so good for the centers of these flowers. I also used this color last week when I was ink blending leaves. I know that sounds like it wouldn't work, but it totally does. And I will link that video at the end of this video as well so you can check that out. Now I need to stamp these little stems, and it was a little tricky to figure out what the heck I was doing and where they needed to go. I spent some time wiggling it around trying to get them figured out. I think maybe what I should do is stamp one and keep it in the stamp case. So next time I can just look at my sample and I know exactly where it needs to go, because they're just tiny little stamps that go in between the petals. I'm going to use the coordinating dies to cut these off camera. I always use washi tape to help hold my dies in place so that they don't slip while I'm cutting. I also stamped a couple of the leaves that come in that set with the Jade ink as well, just to add some variation to my greenery. Now I'm adding some pop dots or some dimensionals onto this piece. I should have just skipped it and went for like foam tape because I added so many, but I just don't like saggy things. I don't like my pieces to sag on my layouts or my cards. I always want to add lots of foam under it or stack pieces of paper under it so that it's not like drooping weirdly. But anyways, I got it on there and I only took the covering off of the middle ones so that I could tuck all my pieces underneath and then go around afterwards with my tweezers and pull off the covering on the dimensionals. That works really good on clusters like this where you are layering pieces under, and that way you're not fighting with your adhesive. Now I am just adding here, trying things out. I really like those blue flowers peeking out from underneath the circle. They're on kind of a curve, so they really follow the curve of that circle very nicely. And I want some pieces to be under, some of the flowers to be over, and it just adds some more dimension when you have things tucked under and layered over like that. I'm going to have these blue flowers just kind of poking out to the side. I played around with maybe tucking them around the circle as well, but I ended up just flipping them the other way and kind of having them come out from the circle a little bit. I liked that. I went ahead and stuck everything down, and then I decided I needed a little bit more blue up there, so I am just adding this one to the top because I thought it would look better to have that blue that's kind of standing out in 3 different places to balance it out a little bit more. And when I'm adding my die cuts, I just add tiny little dots of that Barely Art Glue. The detail tip works so good for that. I stuck the rest of them down off camera so you don't have to watch. But then I went and pulled out my gold Mercury paper. This was released in July as part of the online exclusives. It's gorgeous vellum with gold on it. And I grabbed another one of my favorite sets, the sketched butterfly, and I'm going to use some of these little butterfly dies. I chose the vellum instead of like a gold metallic paper because I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle. I think they are a nice shine to the page without stealing the show. I adhered them with a little dot of glue under their bodies, and then I grabbed these. These are a new favorite as well. These are the adhesive-backed metallic gems, and they are in your standard metallic colors. The gold, silver, copper, 2 different sizes, and I just love adding them to my projects. There's not a ton of dimension to them, but they do shine really nice. I'm going around and just adding them to my clusters, just scattering them here and there to add a little extra sparkle. I am going to add them over by the other butterfly as well on top of the photos, but I had to really make sure I wanted them there before I put them on because they would just fall off. Oh, and I found another flower that I hadn't stuck down. So that one's getting dimensionals on it. And then here is a close-up look. I love how this turned out. It was so fun to scrapbook these photos. They're not a super deep story. We just went to a U-Pick and picked some Saskatoons, which I made 3 Saskatoon crisps with all those Saskatoons, and they were delicious. Go ahead and check out the rest of the Creative Design Team videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.